Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here with us today. Because today, we're taking that chaotic, exhausting news cycle of massive successes and spectacular failures, and we're translating it into a really profound, practical life lesson for our own daily routines. Seriously, have you noticed how every week another founder falls, another celebrity gets canceled, another empire crumbles? It's like every single time we open our feeds, someone who supposedly had it all is suddenly losing it all. And as busy professionals, we're just trying to build our own lives and careers, right? So it's super easy to just scroll past or maybe even judge them a little bit. But what if there's a much deeper lesson hidden in all that chaos for us? Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. When empires crumble.
So, we aren't here today to judge these public failures or dissect the latest gossip. Not at all. Instead, we're going to use these massive, highly visible downfalls as a sort of macro mirror for our own daily micro-anxieties. You know the ones, the stress we feel about a big project at work, a shifting relationship, or just our own changing identities. Consider this incredibly powerful thought. When someone falls from a height, the real question isn't why it happened to them, but whether we would be blinded if we stood there. It beautifully points out that wealth, power, and applause, they're like an undertow. They can completely sweep us away. Honestly, if you suddenly had all that validation, would your core identity actually survive, or would you forget who you really are?
Which brings us to Section 2, Formation and Flourishing.
To really understand why these downfalls happen, and honestly, why we feel so much pressure and anxiety in our own lives, we need to look at an ancient framework. And don't think of this as some religious dogma. It's really more like an undeniable law of physics and sociology, originally formulated in ancient Buddhist philosophy. It's called Cheng-Zhu-Huai-Kong. In plain modern English, this is simply the natural, inevitable four-stage cycle of formation, flourishing, decay, and dissolution. Stripped of any sectarian jargon, this is just how the universe works. It applies to Fortune 500 businesses, it applies to startup phases, our romantic relationships, and even our own physical bodies.
And this brilliantly illustrates the first half of the cycle. Step 1 is formation. It always starts with a dream, right? A small startup, a tiny spark of an idea. Then it grows into Step 2, flourishing. This is the big market expansion, the IPO, the peak fame, that amazing honeymoon phase. But listen, here's exactly where the trap is set. In that flourishing stage, leaders, and all of us really, we mistakenly begin to believe that this success is purely our own doing, and even more dangerously, we start to think it's going to be permanent.
And that leads us to Section 3, Decay and Dissolution.
You see, that relentless pressure to constantly stay in the flourishing stage, to literally never let the line on the graph go down, is exactly what causes our modern exhaustion and burnout. We are constantly fighting the natural turn of the wheel. Because the reality is, decay doesn't start with the scandalous headline. It starts the exact day a leader stops listening to the truth. The visible collapse, the dissolution part, is really just the final, incredibly loud result of a long, quiet, totally invisible decay. And that decay? It's usually rooted in an inflated ego, surrounding oneself with a cozy echo chamber and completely ignoring the reality that things are actually shifting.
This brings us to a beautiful, totally validating concept, impermanence, or as it's traditionally called, anicca. Anicca is the universal reality that markets, algorithms, youth, and public opinion are all in a constant state of flow. Seriously, if you're feeling exhausted right now, it's highly likely because you are fighting this flow. Fighting impermanence, trying desperately to freeze time at the absolute peak of success is honestly the root cause of so much of our daily suffering.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 4, letting go of ego.
So, we need to shift our focus away from the external business world, right inward to our own personal identities and the roles we play every single day. On one side, you've got the fragile ego. This is the voice saying, I am my job title, I am my wealth, I am my reputation. And the problem is, when that role is lost, the person just shatters. But on the other side is what we call the true mind. The true mind is the quiet observer. It's that constant, steady awareness that simply watches the success and the failure. The true mind isn't destroyed when the company goes under, and it doesn't get a massive ego when you get a promotion. It just calmly, steadily observes.
Which leads us to this incredibly profound realization. The real suffering isn't the change itself, but our refusal to allow the change. And this is exactly where the concept of letting go comes into play. Now, letting go does not mean giving up on your career or abandoning your ambitions or ignoring your family. Not at all.
It means engaging with all of those things fully, doing your absolute best, but without your entire identity being so rigidly tied to the outcome.
Let's look at how to actually do this in Section 5, Finding Your True Mind.
So, the crucial point is, how do we actually find and maintain that true mind in the middle of a really stressful, demanding week? Well, the good news is, we actually live through Cheng-Zhu-Huai-Kong every single day. Just think about it. The morning when we wake up, that's formation. By midday, we are working, we're highly active, that's flourishing. By the evening, our energy wanes, things wind down, that's decay. And at night, when we finally sleep, the day ends, that is dissolution. We successfully survive this entire cycle every 24 hours. This totally proves there is absolutely nothing to fear in natural endings. It's just the rhythm of life.
To help you tap into this, here are 3 really small, actionable practices you can do today. First, just observe one thing today that you implicitly assume will last forever. Maybe it's your company's current success or a specific dynamic in a friendship. Just acknowledge that it will eventually change. Second, simply watch your morning coffee go from hot to cold. It sounds silly, but it's a tiny, safe lesson in impermanence. And third, notice a mood passing through, a moment of frustration, or maybe a burst of joy. Just watch it arrive, flourish, decay, and dissolve, completely without holding on to it.
I want to close with this beautifully warm thought. True wealth isn't standing at the peak forever. It's never losing your true mind, whether you are high or low. Remember, you are not your successes, and you are definitely not your failures. You are the constant, quiet awareness experiencing them.
So I'm going to leave you with this question to ponder as you go about your day. In the shifting script of your life, are you awake to the impermanence, or are you just playing the role? Thank you so much for exploring this explainer with me today. Keep observing, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.